Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily for June 18th, 2025. I'm Dave DuFour here with Sam Amick and Zena Keita. Coming up, full episode of Sam Amick. We catch up on the finals and the latest on the Desmond Bane trade and Kevin Durant. NBA Finals is about to swing back to Indianapolis. Our senior national NBA writer, and I call him our team insider here at the NBA Daily, Sam Amick, is here with me and Zena Keita. Sam, not good news for the Pacers, it seems. Breaking news right before we went to record. It does appear as if Tyrese Haliburton has potentially been diagnosed with a calf sprain or calf strain. He's going to have an MRI. What's the latest that you know about his status heading into Game 6?
Great to be with you guys. Appreciate you having me. So I walked out with Tyrese briefly last night after his press conference, described him in my column as, looked like an old man who was on a Sunday stroll, very gingerly steps, taking his time. He had said at that time that he was 100% going to play. The Pacers today are downplaying, the focus on the MRI, and essentially saying it's standard protocol and that he's going to push to play. Now, as you guys saw in Game 5, it's like on the one hand, it's admirable. And as he said afterwards, it's the finals. But it's hard not to also think about the fact that, a lot of folks, myself included, thought that TJ McConnell probably should have had more time in that second half and that Tyrese just wasn't himself. So you wonder in Game 6, obviously, assuming he does play, just what kind of version are we going to get?
And what's really tough is, you hear Tyrese Haliburton say, if I'm walking, I'm playing. Right. But there is, as you mentioned, there's a hindrance to what the Pacers can do out there if they're trying to cover up, for his mistakes or his gingerness on defense, et cetera. I'm curious if there was anyone, any comment from the players about Tyrese, post game. Had anyone mentioned, how strong he's been and what it's been like, just watching him try to fight through this?
There was certainly, kind words and words of appreciation for him toughing it out. The part, I don't think they would say out loud is that it's just everybody could see the impact. I remember one possession in the third quarter, I think, where defensively he was literally, his closeouts where he was leaping on closeouts and just leaving his feet because he didn't have the ability to shuffle and have, quick twitch, stops and starts. And against obviously a team the caliber of these Thunder, that's an issue. So I think they appreciate it. But I also do think, to be honest with you, that, with everything being on the line and the chance to push the whole thing to 7, go back to OKC, Rick Carlisle is going to have to make sure that he makes the right calls here, even though this is one of your franchise centerpiece players and a guy that has a massive voice within this organization. I think Rick's got to make sure that he's putting the best guys on the floor, depending on how Tyrese's health is.
You've been at every finals game. How's it been so far? Has it met your expectations as far as, atmosphere and the style of play? Are you enjoying these finals?
Absolutely. To be honest, the basketball has been great. Admittedly, all those years covering Cavs, Warriors, and Spurs Heat, some incredible memories, but you had, dynasties within that, and you had rivalries and a lot of the same teams year in and year out. It's a funny experience to be spending this much time in two markets that I haven't been in a very long time, in Indy and OKC. But then basketball wise, it's been neat because nobody thought the Pacers could push this thing like they have in this series. OKC looks so dominant. You've got star power with the young guys and Shea and Tyrese and Pascal's a little bit older, but Jalen Williams, obviously incredible. The thing I love, guys, is that especially, to look at it through the NBA's prism, no better time than right now when you got your media rights deal done. You got plenty of money in the bag. You don't need to worry about ratings right now. You really don't. You need to grow these stars and these teams and these products and kind of remind people that, okay, you might not have heard of these squads before, but if you did pay attention, look at how good the basketball was. Look at how fun it was. Game 3, I think it was, people were talking about, or Game 4 rather, just how, in terms of how hard of a basketball game it was, this is legendary stuff where, this is what you should want as a fan, is guys putting everything on the line and the underdog maybe pushing it to a possible upset. So no, it's been a lot of fun for sure.
With the Thunder, you can almost pitch your fans. It's like get in on the ground floor of a dynasty, right? Like, I mean, you think about Oklahoma City is centrally located. There are large swaths of people that don't necessarily have a geographical alliance, with any sort of team, right? Like the Bulls are a big market now, but like maybe the Thunder could steal some of their fans. They haven't been good in a long time. I think that this is a huge opportunity.
You're recruiting bandwagoners. That's what you're doing here, Dave.
They ought to. I mean, the league encourages you to watch the whole league, right? I mean, Zena, we talk about this all year. One of the things that this finals, it really has paid off for NBA fans that follow everybody.
Yeah, it's really great basketball. And, it's funny. One of the things that comes to mind as you talk about fans attaching themselves and aligning themselves with stars is that usually that star is demonstrative. And I really loved your article, Sam, about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being quite the opposite of that. And particularly, after that Game 3 performance, going to Game 4, you think maybe he's too chill, he's too passive, and then he plays the way he does. And it makes me feel as if the league is moving away from those personalities. Like you're seeing more stars, more relevant pieces. I mean, the person that comes to mind right now is Desmond Bane, that are just like great characters, and they're not problematic and they're not big faces in terms of being demonstrative. But teams are really, rallying around that, and fans are starting to rally around that too. Is this going to be a shift in the way that you're looking at the leaders of teams, or even just like big pieces around the NBA?
It could be. I mean, for my money, Zena, like give me a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? Give me a guy like Shai.
Same. Yeah.
Whose personality, I mean, it's funny. I'm not a hot take guy. You guys know that about me. After Game 3, we actually had a discussion, and we being the editors and myself, about the fact that when I went in the Thunder locker room, and I'm going to sound like the old head that was just, yelling at clouds, but I looked around the Thunder locker room and it just didn't look like anybody was pissed. There were no chairs getting thrown around. And I almost wrote a column just kind of saying, I think OKC might need to have a little more fire here. Thankfully, I didn't, because that logic didn't track. Like Shai was as chill in Game 4 as he was in Game 3. And then he put together the best 5 minutes of his basketball life at the end of that game. So for me, a guy like that is wonderful. But I love a little bit of Dylan Brooks getting in people's faces. I love Tyrese Haliburton, talking a little bit of trash. Shameless plug. I got to share for a friend and colleague, Jim Ice from the NBA, put together an amazing NBA video that I actually was just talking to him about. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, after one of these games, signed, or before the game, signed.
Oh, I love this video.
Autographs. So they followed him around. They took the time to add up how many times. And I've seen him do this. And I've told the Thunder, like, this is remarkable. Like he's sitting there just pouring back into the fans. And so to your point, he's a great, representative of the league, a smart young guy, and a guy who honestly has been thoughtful all the way through these playoffs from a media standpoint. And then he's putting together an incredible historic run on top of that.
I got stuck in that Thunder autograph crowd because Andrew Schlecht didn't tell me to get out of there before they released the Hounds. Basically, it was a sea of people, and the players they signed as many as they could. I mean, this is like after warmups and stuff.
Dave, you didn't want to do the thing. Shai actually signed the guy's bald head. You didn't want to be that guy.
No. I did not want to do that. Okay, I want to get your take on Game 6. All right, obviously we're dealing with the Haliburton news like in real time, and we don't know what his availability is going to be. But I'm going to ask you the question I've basically been asking everybody on the show. Is it over?
First time that I've said this. Yeah, I think it is. And the Pacers can, put that on the bulletin board. When it was 2-2, my buddy Vinny Goodwill and I from Yahoo Sports were arguing about this. He was at 2-2. He was already saying it's over. I'm going, there's no way, there's no way I'm going to. So I wasn't ready at 2-2. It does feel that way right now. And the Haliburton thing is the X factor because he's got to be 100%. OKC has certainly figured things out as this series has gone along. And, that combination on top of that energy, like it takes a lot to win a game 6, especially against a team like this. And maybe they shock me and pull this thing off. But yeah, I think chances are the Thunder celebration will probably be in the streets of Indy.
Guys, stick around after the break. We're going to ask Sam about the Desmond Bane trade that came out of nowhere and the latest on Kevin Durant. If you've been reading Sam over at The Athletic, you know that this summer is shaping up to be one of potentially drastic changes. Sam, I got to say, I did not have Desmond Bane getting traded on my bingo card anywhere. And it also explains the haul that Memphis got. Like they got the price to keep it quiet and get it done. Pretty good business, I think, for both teams. I think Orlando improves at a position that they really needed an upgrade. And then for Memphis, they get this amazing asset offer that you just kind of have to take. Where did this trade come from, man?
Well, I mean, we knew Orlando obviously just had one glaring weakness, lack of shooting. And not only do they get a guy in Desmond who can shoot the lights out, but a guy who on both ends of the floor fits into that incredible defense they have and the rugged personality. That's the part of it that I love. So, it's now clear that they were very quietly shopping around. I would love to know kind of what their list looked like beyond Desmond. You know what I mean? Like somebody of this ilk. There really aren't that many players like this. I love it for them. And like you said, Memphis gets a haul. Certainly it raises questions about the Grizzlies and the track that they're on. The early signals seem to be that, no, they're not now going to start trying to move Ja Morant or Jaren Jackson Jr., but they're in a tricky spot because they got to pay Jaren here pretty soon. And that is, as great a player as he is, the type of number that he's going to be looking for is one of those that I think a lot of teams in the NBA would have pause, to give him that type of a deal. We know how challenging Ja's last few years have been and just kind of the fall from grace that he has had. So I believe it for now that they're continuing to build around them, but I certainly wonder at some point here, and maybe it's a trade deadline thing, if they just don't look good, with this crew now with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Cole Anthony, then what is the mood at that point? But huge thumbs up for Orlando. And yes, to the Grizzlies' credit, they got the kind of haul that you should in a deal like this.
That KCP contract and the Phoenix 2026 pick are both very interesting to me for Memphis. Like you said, I mean, it could be something that they hang on to till the trade deadline. I mean, Zeno, like we talked about, this league now, you have to be so deep. Your stars have to play 75 games and Ja just doesn't. Like I think if I'm Memphis, that's my big question mark right now heading into the summer.
I mean, it sounds like this is a trade reset or a financial reset for them. I mean, for me, I was a little curious about this. I just talked about the fact that Shai Gilgeous is this person that's got a great personality and a great leader. And I feel like Desmond Bane was this person for Memphis. He was this hometown product. He was a culture piece. He was good on both sides of the ball, obviously. And particularly, he shot well. Yes, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a 3-and-D guy that can kind of plug short term what you need in terms of that shooting capability. But I think the question still is out there for the Memphis fans, at least. Like, you're still trying to win now. This isn't a full rebuild. Is KCP enough? Or what else is there out there in terms of your targets that you're looking to move? I really liked the way that John Hollinger broke this trade down. But it felt like I was left asking more questions reading that versus actually knowing, like, what does Memphis want now that they've got their new coach, they've got their two guys in Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, and some pieces around it. But it still seems like they got a lot of moves to make, Sam.
No, I mean, the West being what it is, that's, if you're a Grizzlies fan, you're kind of shaking your head going, how are we supposed to keep our head above water? So I would assume, that there's got to be more moves to come. It's just a strange time in Memphis because to make the type of coaching decision that they made late in the regular season, kind of an unprecedented move in terms of timing, and one that, you bring in Tuamas Isolo, a completely different system, and the rumblings at that time that Ja was still in a good place with Taylor Jenkins, which I don't have total clarity on that. It's just, you're trying to read the tea leaves. Like, is this a recommitment to Ja as the franchise centerpiece? Is this a coming off of John, Jaron, I really honestly think a lot of people are having a hard time figuring out, what Zach Kleiman is doing here front office wise. And he certainly might have a plan that we just don't know of now, and they find a way to pivot. But the West, even to tie it back into the finals, it's just everybody can see front and center right now that the Thunder are applying a ton of pressure to every other squad in the West and the league at large. And so I think what it exacerbates is situations like the Grizzlies where you can only hold on to the rope for so long. And if you're not going in the right direction, you might actually have to think about a teardown. I don't think they're there yet, but I think the opening months of the regular season will be indicative of where they are.
I don't think it's putting lipstick on a pig, but this team, I don't feel as if this team has changed enough yet to be a team that cannot be a first round exit, right? I guess that's my point, is that this team has been a first round exit team for the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that I've seen in this trade other than pieces to go and try and move things that changes that. They're still, even though they're young and they've got 2 stars in their prime still, there's not, I don't see them still beating the Warriors at the point, right? Or beating the teams that they've struggled with. And I'm trying to figure out. This can't
be their team if they're trying to compete next year. Right.
There's going to be a lot. I feel like there's still a lot more to be seen for the Grizzlies.
We don't know, again, who they're targeting, but because it's Memphis and this is the small market story, for all of the teams like that across the league, is that targeting is one thing, but having the ability to actually land certain guys,
right,
another. Like people immediately speculated about Kevin Durant and possibly using all those picks to have KD go to Memphis. That does not appear to be in play at all.
But that Phoenix 2026 pick and that KCP contract gets them in the mix to be involved in a KD trade, right? Because the Suns would love to have that pick back. Let's go ahead and talk about KD. What's the latest that you've got on him? I mean, I know that we're dwindling this list down to fewer and fewer teams. It feels to me like it's going to wind up being Miami. That's a marriage that just seems to fit. What's the latest news on KD?
Yeah, the list to me, it's funny. It's just not as simple as all members of the list being equal. That's my opinion. You've got San Antonio, Houston, Miami. We first reported, myself and John Krasinski and Kelly Iko, that San Antonio and Houston were on the list. Later confirmed the ESPN report about Miami. Okay, now we got 3. Then yesterday, we analyzed the Minnesota situation quite a bit. Now, Minnesota's not on the list, but because the Suns so far do not like what they are hearing and getting from the teams on the list, they very clearly would love for the Timberwolves to become a place that Kevin Durant wants to play. And he right now is signaling that it's not a team that he's willing to put on his list. Right. They clearly like, the package potentially coming from Minnesota more than most, if not all of the others. And the calculus there is they want to be competitive. So whether you end up bringing back Rudy Gobert or Julius Randle, it would be one of the two. Dante DiVincenzo, maybe get a Rob Dillingham in there, and then, some draft capital. That type of a deal, I think, is something Phoenix would want. We are now to that point. We're in phase 2 of these discussions, where phase 1 was the Suns playing nice and saying, yes, we'll talk to the 3 teams on your list and see if we can get something done. Phase 2 is that we're not feeling this. Now we kind of need you to meet us in the middle a little bit. I don't know if Kevin's going to bend at all. Even within the list, though, guys, we have intel for sure that, Kevin has indicated to people that if you had to pick a team on the list that was above the others, that it would be San Antonio. Now, that's a tricky calculus because the Spurs, if you use the De'Aaron Fox trade as an example, the Spurs have already shown that they have zero interest in really giving up any of their young core. They're trying to find creative ways to get the guy that they want without giving, they'll kind of circumvent the stuff that goes back to the other team, like they did in that Kings deal. So the Miami stuff, Dave, I'm curious how you see that, because if you're Phoenix and you're trying to be competitive, I'm not excited about, Duncan Robinson and Andrew Wiggins coming back.
I think they're just going to have to give it up. That's the thing, right? Like, they have to move KD. Everyone knows that they have to move KD. And at a certain point, it's almost like the Jimmy Butler trade for them. for Miami. Miami didn't get this huge haul. They didn't get the Mikal Bridges haul that they thought they might get, right? They didn't get the bevy of picks and useful players. And I think when you're the Suns at a certain point, everyone knows you have to cut bait before training camp. So you're just going to have to get it done. And I think that the Suns are the ones that are in the bad spots, not the rest of the league. If Kevin Durant was 30 years old, right, this is a different conversation. But he's 36, sure. He's injury prone. And, as great and amazing as he still is, this isn't a guy that you're going to mortgage, your entire franchise for.
See, it also seems like there's go ahead.
No, real quick, Zena, sorry. I think the Suns would love your Jimmy Butler comparison, but they want Minnesota to be
right
the compromise like Golden State was. Because if you remember, and this, I do think this informs this situation, Jimmy had publicly signaled that he would not sign an extension with the Warriors. That was reported. That was from his camp. And lo and behold, he signed an extension with the Warriors. I do think that's what Phoenix is hoping happens here when it comes to Kevin and Minnesota.
It could. I mean, it's up to Minnesota, right?
It's up to Kevin, really, because Minnesota's not going to play ball until they get signaled that Kevin wants to play there.
And sign the extension.
Tim Conley in particular, the GM, personality-wise, he's a culture lifter. He's a guy that wants people to want to be there. That is something that matters to him. And so if the messaging continues that Kevin would be, coming while dragging his feet, then the Wolves are not going to put much on the table.
Well, taking the Wolves away and looking at the two teams that have young assets to give, whether it's picks or actual players in San Antonio and Houston, how much does the fact that draft night is less than 2 weeks away impact all of this in terms of the Suns needing to get a deal done immediately?
Yeah, I mean, everything could change, but at this point, I would be shocked. Everybody's expecting this to happen certainly before draft night. I mean, really, I guess we're sitting here on Tuesday. We got a few more days left in the week. A lot of people thought that it might be this week. I think maybe it slows down a little bit again because, so far it seems like the Suns, as one executive put it, whose team is not on the list. He said the Suns are trying to drum up offers right now. They just, again, they don't like what they see from the main group, and they're trying to see what else could be out there. Dave alluded to this earlier too. Absolutely, they are looking at possible 3-team deals where, different teams are trying to get in there and see if they could benefit from this situation. Sacramento, I know, is one of them. So, but honestly, I think they're talking to a ton of teams. So, but timing wise, to your question, I do think it's certainly sooner rather than later, and it's got to be before the draft.
I think it's going to be a chaotic summer, Sam. I know you want to take a vacation, but I don't see a long one in your future.
Mid-July.
That's right. Catch you in Hawaii. All right. That's going to do it for the show, folks. Thank you to Sam Amick for hanging out with us. To Zena Keita, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.